Hello everyone, it's Amy and welcome back for week 196 of Build Your Stash and Craft. So today we are going to make puff flowers, and I saw a picture of this. I think it was like on Pinterest. I don't actually look at Pinterest, but they send me stuff to my emails and it has all these little pictures. So I'm not sure if this is what they did or how they did it, but this is what popped into my head when I saw it. So this is what we're going to do. So to start with, a piece of colored fabric. I wonder if, okay, so I think that this one is probably long enough. Let me grab my tape measure and see. This is 7.5 inches long. Let's try this one. I want it to be definitely long enough to make the flower, so let's go with this one. Let's see how long this is. This one is 9.5 inches long. There's no exact size to have, but because I'm going to make the first one, I'm going to make a fairly large flower, so it's easier to see, but you can make them any size that you want. So 9.5 inches will be good. And then I'm going to cut it probably, I'm going to fold it in half to sew it. So I probably want it to be about, I'm going to guess that's about 1.5 inches. Yep, so we're going to cut our fabric about 3 inches wide. So that's going to be 3 inches by, I think it was 9.5. I'm going to give it a rip. If you can rip it, cotton material will rip, it rips nice and straight. So I have to decide which side is my outside. This is going to be my outside because it's much brighter. So I'm just going to fold it in half. And then I am going to just sew it together. To knot your thread, you just pull your thread between your fingers, wrap it around so that the wrap is in front of what you are holding on to, and then put it right in front, and then just roll them together like that until they roll off your finger. Then grab that little bit of a loop that it makes, grab that and pull down, and that's what makes an easy knot. So just in case you didn't know. I'm sure there's plenty of ways to make knots, but that's just the way my mom taught me to do it. So we're just going to fold this in half, sew it down probably about 1/4 inch or so, and just do a running stitch, which is just in and out and in and out. This fabric, because it's been painted, is a little bit, it's a little bit like heavy or something. It's hard to get the needle to keep going through, so to pull it through. So I just push it on my table. If you have a, what do you call those things? A thimble, that helps. And we're just going to do a running stitch all the way down to the other end. And like I said, I can't go too far before I have to push it through because of how hard the fabric is. Now we're also going to need some stuffing for this, and we have stuffing in our stash that we got a while ago. And because to buy a whole bag of stuffing is a little bit expensive, we just bought a stuffed animal from the dollar store. I just want to make sure that where I poked myself, I'm not bleeding, and I'm not, thank goodness. Okay, so I'm just going to keep doing this until I get to the other end. And you want your stitches, I'm getting my stitches a little bit bigger. You want your stitches to be all about the same size, because then when you gather it up, it makes your gathers all kind of even. If you do your stitches all different sizes, your gathers will be different sizes. Ow. Okay, and we all know that I can't sew. But next week's project is going to be a sewing project too, so you'll get to watch me fumble my way through that also. I have just never been one much for sewing, although I've been having fun with it after watching Sonia for so long. She does a lot of things with fabric, and I just have to try them. And I found out that I don't dislike it as much as I thought I did. I just don't know how to do it. Okay, and so then what we're going to do is we're going to gather this together just to kind of see that we're going to have enough. Of course, if we didn't, it's too late. We'd have to just do another one, but okay, so that will be okay. It probably could have been a little bit longer because the wider that it is, the longer it has to be. So see, it's kind of curling up on the edges a little bit. And so if it was a little bit longer, it would lie flatter. But we're just gonna work with what we have here because it's what we have. Okay, so now we need to open it back up nice and flat. Just like that. And then we're going to take some of our stuffing and we're going to stuff it. And like I said, this one is kind of big. You can make them any size that you want to, although this is not like, I don't know what I want to say, it's not like extra big, depending on what you're using it for. You know, if you wanted to like make a little bouquet of flowers, this would be like a really good size. And we're just going to keep putting that stuffing in there until we get it stuffed all the way down. Now, I probably could have started with the other end because I've got my needle sticking out here, but I already started here, so I'm just going to continue. And we do need to leave our needle attached because we need to gather it back up after we get it stuffed. Now, we don't need it to be stuffed super, super full. Just kind of like this is stuffed pretty tight. I don't want it that tight. So I'm just going to kind of like, you know, pull that down a little bit to thin it out. Also then so I know how much I'm still going to push that in there. Could use a pencil or something to push that down there too. Just kind of pull that towards the other end. I suppose that I could. Now that I've got this, so this is kind of, it's stuffed, but a little bit flat instead of stuffed really solid. But right here is where I started new stuffing. So there's like a gap right there. So I'm just kind of trying to kind of push that together a little bit. All right, now we'll come from this end. And if you want to, we're going to put a button or something in the middle for the center of our flower. But if you don't want to have a center in your flower, then you would turn this right side out so that your edge is not on the outside. So your seam is not on the outside. And if you're going to do it that way, then you need to make sure that you put the good side of your fabric to the inside of your fold, not the outside. So that when you turn it right side out, you'll have the good side of your fabric showing. And with this being hand-dyed fabric, it doesn't really make that much difference. There's not that much of a difference between one side and the other. But if it's fabric from the store, usually the back side doesn't have that much color on it. So we need just a little bit more stuffing. And we'll be ready to make our flower. But I thought that these were really quite cute. And then I have another way to do it. We're going to make some smaller ones. And to try and stuff the stuffing in a smaller one, you can do it, but it's a little bit harder. So I thought of another way this morning to do it that worked out really well. So I'll show you that next. Okay, so go. Now we have our stuffing. I don't know what's going on with my needle here. Oh, that's, I was looking at that thread thinking I doubled my thread. I double my thread because I want to pull on it nice and tight when I gather this up. And so if I do a single thread, then a lot of times that wants to break. Just kind of trying to make sure that it's all about the same. And we don't have, I need just a little bit more, not much, but just a touch. Right here at the end. Oh, there was some right there. Okay, and then I'm going to make sure that I have my ends out here nice and flat, because we're going to, so this is nice and flat now without any stuffing in it. And I've got the same thing here. So then I'm just going to now gather up my flower until the one side meets the other. And then I'm gonna, okay, so I've got it gathered so that that's as tight as I'm gonna want it, so that it doesn't get too like rolled up. And then I'm going to put, if this is my front, I'm going to take the fronts of both of these edges and put them towards each other. Like that. And then I'm going to pull this a little bit because it loosened up as I was getting those lined up. So I'll pull that down just a little bit so that my gather is not gone. And then you can adjust it after you sew your flower together. And now we're going to just sew the two sides together. Okay, all the way up. Now, instead of doing a running stitch, because if you do a running stitch, when you get to the end, if you pull it, it will gather that up, and we don't want that gathered up. So instead of doing a running stitch in and out and in and out, we're just going to do like a stitch. We're going to just go over the top to the other side and come through. And we're going to do that all the way up because that will hold it together, but it won't make a gather. Just like we had to do the running stitch to make the gather, we don't want this to gather. And if you pull it super tight, it will still kind of gather, but not as much. So I'm just going from the back to the front, all the way, back to the front, back to the front. Like that, until I get to the top, and then I can just tie a knot in it. And you want to try and keep this about even wherever you're going through. Make sure that you're lined up there at the top before you sew that final stitch up there. Okay. And those are lined up nicely. I'm going to go grab the top. I'm going to come back down a stitch to make my knot down this way. I don't want my knot right out there at the top because I don't like to, right, so make a loop, put your needle through it, and pull tight. That's what knots it. And you can do a double knot where you make a loop, put your needle through the loop, and then come back and put your needle through the loop again, making sure that you go through the loop from the same side both times. And that's a double knot, and that's nice and strong. Okay, so now we've got this, which is cute all on its own, just kind of puffy. And I did not get this, I didn't catch the front area right here. So I'm going to need to fix that and catch it so that it's not really showing. And we need some more thread on our needle to finish up this project. So I'm going to thread my needle because it takes me forever, and I'm going to catch this together. See right here, I didn't catch this front part. When I sewed it, I sewed through the back part, but not the front. So I'm just going to fold this together like that and come in and take a couple stitches right here so that it looks like this. So I'm going to catch that, and I'm going to thread my needle and catch that, and then I'll be back to show you the next step. Okay, I'm back, and I sewed that up right there, so now it's sewn together. And then I just brought my thread down and stuck it through the middle, through the little part that we had sewn there. And so what we're going to do is I brought my thread up through the middle. I'm going to kind of pull it tight and wrap it around that area right there. So that's just going to pull it kind of tight. I'm going to cut off these couple threads right here. Hold on a minute, got a mess here. These are not sewing threads, these are threads from my fabric. Don't ever cut thread that you've already sewn with, even if it's making a mess. Hide it somehow, because if you cut it, your sewing will come undone. But so now we've got this little dent right here. So then what I'm going to do is I wrapped all the way around. I'm going to go back down through the middle. And then, so now that I'm on the back side, I'm going to come over a little ways, come back up through the back, like this, and then go around, come back up again in the same spot, and give it. And actually this is really close together, so I'm going to move that over a little bit. Now, you may want to kind of measure this to make sure that you have all equal spacings, because once we pull that, see, now we've got a little bit of our flower. That's going to be a petal. And we're going to do that all the way around. So I'm going to come over here, go down through the back, come up and around about the same size, and then put it again back down to the back and give it a pull. Now we've got another one. I'm going to come over a little bit, come up, excuse me. I'm going to go around there and come up through the back. And about the same spot, give it a pull. And now this one has let loose right here a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the back and kind of give that a pull. And then see if I can pull it from here. All right, now that one should still be, those should still be tight. They're kind of loosening up. So what I'm going to do is I am going to, right here, I'm going to pull it nice and tight, and I'm going to put a knot in it so that it doesn't let loose. So probably like every 2 petals, we should knot it. I was actually going to knot it after this one, but I'm thinking it should be every couple of petals, so that, because we don't really want to see that thread through there. We want it nice and tight. You actually could knot it after every single one if you wanted to. Once you knot it, then you can't pull it tight anymore. It's knotted and it's going to stay right there. So now we've got those 3 little puffs. And again, go over a little ways, go down to the back, come around, go down to the back again. And give it a pull. That's really close, so I'm going to move that thread over a little bit. I'm not really that concerned with if they're all exact, but I definitely don't want, you know, like a great big huge difference if I can help it. I'm going to go ahead and just take a little extra stitch here on the back. Oops. And give that a pull so that hopefully that holds. And there we go. So I'm going to come up through the back, give it a pull, go over just a little bit, maybe right about there. And I think that sometimes I'm going from back to front, front to back. That doesn't matter so long as you get your loop around there and get it pulled nice and tight. So I'm going to hold that one right where it's at. Squish it really tight to hold it. And put a knot in here because I'm out of thread. So I'm going to have to get some more thread. Find my loop. My thread is not long enough for me to turn my needle around and put it through the loop, so I'm putting my needle in backwards. And if I can't pull my needle out all the way, then you can pull your needle out as far as you can, nip the thread up here, and then pull the thread. So there we go, but we've got about half of our puff flower done. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get some more thread, and I'm just going to go around and do these last 1, 2, 3, there's 5 there. I'm going to probably try and get 5 here. Maybe there will only be 4. But that is what I'm going to do here, and then I will come back, show you what it looks like, and then I'll show you the other way to do it. But I just think these are really cute. Isn't that cute? And then you can put a button in the middle or some kind of a cabochon or something, and I love the way that they look. So I will be back in a minute to show you what it looks like done, and to show you the next one for a smaller one. This is the next one that I have here. And it's not quite as puffy, but it's still puffy. And the thing about it is you can just do a flower like this, but they do get kind of flat if you put them in something and they get squished, like if you put them in a journal or something. So for this one, it's not too thick, but it's never going to completely squish down because of the fact that it is a puff flower, so it's got some stuffing in there. So I'll show you how to do this one next. I'll be back in just a minute. Okay, so here it is all done, and I think that just looks cute. Now we have a very messy center because of the fact that we just did our seam on the outside. It would be a little bit of a neater center if you did your seams on the inside, but being that you're going to put something there, it doesn't matter. And remember how I told you that if you go to your sewing and you wind up with I was trying to make a knot, and I wound up with these extra bits stuck. I could not pull them through. I could not get it undone, but I didn't cut them off because if I cut them, I hadn't actually made a knot yet. I mean, they knotted themselves, but we don't know how good they knotted themselves. So if I cut these off, very possibly the whole thing that I had sewed before this would have let go. So I just left them on there, and I'll just bury them underneath. No big deal. So this is what it looks like, and then you're just going to stick some kind of a center in there. You can sew it in, you can glue it in, you can do it however you would like, but doesn't that just make it cute? And look at how nice and puffy, and you have just some real dimensional interest there. And then if you wanted to like put some on a stick or something, or put it on a pencil or whatever, then what I would do is, and to sew this in, you'll have to catch the edges. But what I would do also is, if you're going to put it on something where you're going to see the back, just cut a circle of felt, or a circle of even the same color, or put a button on the back. If you put another button on the back, then you'll have a center on each side, and that would be cute too. So just cover that back up. But so there's that one. And then the next one is really easy. And so what I have here, this piece is 5.5 by 2. When I made this one right here, this was 7 by 2, and it's a little, the 7 was a little bit too long. When I went to curl it up, see, we're not really round, and there's just like, there's extra there. It shouldn't have been 7 inches long. And so I made this next one 5 inches. And this one I just sewed the button right to the middle. I sewed the big button first, and then I sewed the little button on top of it. So with this one, what we're going to do is just take some kind of fiber and just cut it the same length as your strip of fabric. And so with that one over there, I did 4. So we'll do 4 for this one because I really thought that's a nice thickness. And if they're a little bit too long, no big deal. And then I'm just going to kind of squunch them together. Fold my fabric in half. and do a running stitch. And when you're doing a running stitch and you're going to be pulling on it really hard, like to gather, what you may want to do is take your needle and put it through. This is a double thickness of thread tied with a knot there. So at the knot, I'm going to go through that at the knot and grab it like that. So I have wrapped this through the knot, and that holds on to that a little bit better, if that was as clear as mud. And then again, probably just about 1/4 of an inch down. We are just going to do a running stitch. And the smaller your flower, to me, the smaller the flower, the smaller you want your stitches on your running stitch, because that tells you how big your gathers are going to be. And so on a big one, you can do bigger stitches, because if it's a bigger amount, you know, if it gathers, I don't know how to say it, if it doesn't gather super close together, I got my string caught here, so I just need to get that out of there. That's okay, but with a smaller flower, you want your little, like pleats or whatever you want to call them, you want them to be closer together because your flower is so small. So I am just going to continue going. When I get just about to the end, I'm going to pull it tight and see how it looks. Because if you need to cut a little off the end, if you've got too much, like I did with that one with the 7 inches, you can't just cut it off if you've sewn all the way to the end, because then you're going to cut your thread and you won't be able to gather it. So maybe I'll just go a little bit further until there's about 1 inch left and see how that looks. So that's what I should have done when I had 7 inches of fabric there. I should have gathered it up to see if I had enough or not enough. So I'm just going to pull this together nice and tight, and then I'm going to see. What you want to do is you want to make sure that it will lay down flat and the side that you're sewing will come all the way around without making the whole thing curl up like this because you don't have enough. And I think that I can probably do the whole 5 inches because I don't have quite enough yet to turn that. And yes, our yarn is kind of in the way for you to see, but I think you probably know what I'm talking about. It's just like any other gathered flower, except that we've stuffed this one so that we have a little puff flower. Alrighty, so we've made it all the way to the end. Gather it up nice and tight. I think that's going to work out fine. And now what I'm going to do is making sure that I keep my thread out of the way so that I don't cut it. I'm going to trim those fibers off. On both sides. And then we're going to put it together just like we did the other one. I think that I want this to be my top because I like those colors better. So that means I'm going to bring these together like this. Making sure they line up at the top. If they don't line up at the bottom, that's not as big of a deal because you're going to put a center in it anyways. So if that's a little off, but you definitely want your top to line up nice so that that's what you're going to see on the outside. All right, so I'm going to just go through both layers like that. And again, I'm just going to, don't know what kind of stitch this is, but from back to front, trying to make sure that I catch all 4 layers, the front and the back of each of these sides. Just pull it nice and tight. And if you do a running stitch, then just be careful about pulling it too tight and making it all gather up. All right, so I'm going to put a stitch right through here at the top, trying to kind of grab those two pieces, make sure that they're stuck together. And I may have pulled it a little bit too tight. If I would have left it maybe a little bit looser, there'd be a little bit of a hole in the middle, which I guess doesn't matter, it's getting covered up anyways. So just kind of fluff it around until it gets like you want it. And then just going to come back down here and knot this off. This one I didn't, you could, you know, do the wrap thing if you want to. But I just kind of, because it's smaller, you know, you really see the puff. See, I got another loop there. I'm doing my thread's doing something wrong. See, it's not me. So I'm not going to cut that off because I don't want my knot to come out. I'm just going to cut it right there. It's on the back anyways. And so there we go. And then we just find a cute little button to put in the middle of there. That one is too small and too red. That one's cute. And then if you think, I need to have a little something extra, you just put another one on top of it, except not red. Like maybe orange. Ooh, that's kind of cute, but it's too small, but that's cute. Well, either I didn't hardly get any orange buttons or I've used them all. Oh, there we go. That's cute. Just put a knot in this and sew those on there real quick. And that will be it for today's projects. So next week we are going to sew again. So you might not want to stop back by and watch me sew. So we'll just be using our fabrics that we have collected up and needle and thread. And that's it. We won't need anything extra. Oh, I've never been good with buttons. Trying to find the hole. It's hard. There we go. And then I want to catch that other button on top of this one. You could do them both at the same time. I have a hard time with that. I can't usually get it to... I have a hard enough time finding the hole in one button. Trying to find it in two is just too hard for me. And there we go. And just knot it off. It's surprising how this fabric is very stiff after we colored it. There we go. So, and I've got a little bit of fuzz right here. I'm just going to nick that off, making sure that I don't nick any thread. You could even put a little dot of glue on that and kind of pull it backwards. Take that off there. So there we go. These are what the puff flowers look like. And then I have this one. Let's see. This was 3.5 by 1 inch. And it has just one piece of the yarn in there. So it will never get totally flattened because it's got just that little extra puff in it. But so that's today's puff flowers. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I had fun making them, and I just really think they're cute. I really like this, like the balls on this one. I like how that works. I think that they're really cute, and that's what got me started. Was I saw something that looked like that. I don't know if this is how they did it, but yeah, I just thought that that's very cute. So thank you very much for stopping by. Next week, we'll just need some fabric and some needle and thread. So I really hope that you enjoyed today's project, and if you make some, that you have fun doing it. Thanks again for stopping by, and I hope that you all have an outstanding day. Bye-bye.